Level up your LA Kings experience with the new Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access. Enjoy great seats to the game along with premier dining inside the Lexus Club with all-you-can-eat food and non-alcoholic beverages. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings item and parking with your purchase. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn rewards on each purchase from the only ticket company that rewards you for buying. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings.
You're listening to an LA Kings podcast. For more episodes of this and every other Kings program, visit lakings.com/podcast.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
We're continuing on with our player evaluation series. Joining me again, Jim Fox. How are you doing today, Jim?
Let's continue, Jesse.
Before we get into some of the players, there was a bit of news this week, and I don't know how important it is to the Kings front office or the summer, but Marco Sturm was named as head coach of the Boston Bruins, which means the Ontario Reign need a new head coach. And I don't know who's responsible for filling that position. I'm assuming it's the general manager of the Kings, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, I would assume that's where it ends. I'm not sure if that's where it starts.
Right.
But, yeah, I would assume Ken Holland would have the final say on what's going on in the organization. But, you know, I'm sure I don't think they're caught off guard by any means. I mean, his name is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, it shows that, you know, they had a high-quality person in control in Ontario. And obviously it'll be difficult to replace.
Yeah, I just on a personal note, I really liked Marco. He was a funny guy. He was very nice to me. It's just sort of I'm sure Rich Seeley will have input on it. I'm sure Jim Hiller will probably have a little bit of input since he'll be working with the new coach. You know, I'm assuming the organization's commitment to keeping the same style of play for both teams will continue. But it's just, you know, another change this summer to sort of keep an eye on.
I'm very happy for Marco. I agree with you. I really enjoyed my time when I had time, well, especially when he was an assistant. Obviously did not see him as much when he moved to Ontario with the Reign, even though we're in the same building. It's different times and different priorities and things of that sort.
The first Reign game I attended that he was the head coach of, the Reign lost. And I was down there at the media availability after the game, and he, you know, joked around that it was my fault that they lost because I hadn't been there for all of the games yet. And then every time I saw him after that, even if they won, the question was whether or not my curse had been shaken from the Reign yet. So he was a funny guy. He was a nice guy.
There you go.
So congratulations to him. Let's get into the players. We're talking about Fiala, Byfield, and Laferriere today. And I want to talk about Laferriere first, because he's a player that ordinarily he's the type of player that I would love. He is, you know, I loved Iafallo. I loved Eric Belanger, you know, not that those three are necessarily carbon copies of one another, but that sort of profile within the organization. And I do like Alex Laferriere a great deal, but I guess I'm looking for you to open my eyes to what I'm missing when there was talk about, you know, this line, Byfield, Fiala, and Laferriere. It was, okay, Byfield and Fiala have speed, they have skill, they have vision, they have, you know, all of these skill sets, and Laferriere is the puck retriever, the guy who goes into the corner, the guy who does the work that you don't necessarily see reflected in the score sheet, although it can be. Now, some of this is because once that line was put together, I was already not attending games because of, you know, not being allowed to for medical reasons. So it's difficult to catch that sort of thing on TV versus in person. I like Laferriere's game. I like him as a person. I like him as a player, but I never saw that chemistry on that line in person. And so it was difficult for me to connect to it emotionally, but I know you've been a big fan of his from, you know, his first game in the league.
Yeah. Big fan, big supporter, a lot of respect for what he does. First of all, if the Kings had good announcers, you'd probably be able to pick it up better on TV. But no, I think the first thing you have to start with is, I know with Kevin Fiala, what they were saying, Byfield is the Fiala whisperer. And all. What about Laferriere? I think Laferriere is the guy that is the most responsible defensively. I think it's interesting. I think you can take a look at Laferriere's numbers from last year and the quick start and then the production drop off as far as goals went. And then you can equate that with his responsibilities on the lines he was playing with. So early on, he was on the more of the top line offensively, and then he was moved onto a line where I think he was expected to be the babysitter. And I think he did that. And I think that the increase in Fiala's is balanced with the decrease, again, of goals from Laferriere. He ended up with 19, not too bad, but Fiala ended up with 35. You remember the first half, Fiala wasn't scoring, Laferriere was. They reversed it when they started to play together. So another thing, we heard it when he was here, Alex Laferriere when he was here, and he did all the little things, and everyone gets tired of hearing that. And well, I don't, and the coach doesn't.
Right.
And regardless of if it's this coach or another coach, doesn't matter. I think there's a lot of respect for what Alex does as far as cleaning up, but also gifted enough, more than gifted enough, to be able to execute at top speed, real good shot, those types of things. And I expect, even if he stayed with the Byfield Fiala line, I would expect his numbers to increase a little bit. But also, you got to start thinking, okay, how many goals does any singular line score? You got Fiala at 35. You've got Byfield at 23. Then you've got Laferriere at 19. So it's not that bad. So if they all ended up with 25, it would be a similar thing.
Yeah, we had a conversation, me and two of our coworkers, during, I want to say game 3 or game 5 of the playoff series. And we were just talking about the summer and free agency and which players would get raises, because Laferriere is a restricted free agent this summer. And we were talking about his next contract, and the money that was thrown out in the conversation seemed really high to me. And the explanation was, well, look, this is how old he is. He's a 20-goal scorer. He's this age. He does all these different things. Like, that's market value. And I said,
what was the number?
Between 5 and 6, I think.
Okay.
And it just seemed high to me, mostly probably because I expect most people coming out of their ELCs not to sign that. I'm just used to the sort of 1 to 2 range for a player. But
keep in mind, Jesse, the average salary now is $4 million.
Well, there's that I hadn't factored in, but also
basically. So you're talking about an average player. I'm basing it on 25 players and $100 million cap.
Right. But also, I just hadn't, for whatever reason, it had never clicked to me that he had so many goals. I was being a pedantic little, punk, and I was like, well, it's not 20, it's 19. And they were like, come on, like, get out of here. It might as well be 20. But yeah, I mean, that is, to your point about the line and scoring total goals as a line. Yeah, for that kind of line, when you have a player like Fiala who's going to put up the points that he's capable of putting up, and you have Byfield who you expect will continue to add points to his total, if that is a line moving forward, yeah, Alex Laferriere, just by osmosis, should wind up having more points than he did this year. And he's only a second-year player. I mean, I guess that's the sort of thing, is like, I think of him as being both younger and older than he actually is. So I don't know. There's just a weird blind spot in me for evaluating him.
I'll just put it again. Also, if Kevin Fiala continues to play the way he did the last 40 games, 50 games, whatever it was, then he doesn't need a babysitter anymore. And then you could move Laferriere onto another line and expect more offense. If that's what you want to do. Again, the ending of the season is still deep in the pit of my stomach, but overall it was pretty good. So you're probably not going to tinker with too many things, but probably keep them together. But I think that option does arise because he is not needed as much if Kevin continues with a new mindset.
It's funny. I was just looking, and Warren Fogle had 24 goals and 46 points. Alex Laferriere has 19 goals, 42 points. And yet, if you listen to me talk about Warren Fogle, I can't talk about what an unbelievable overproduction. He, exceeded expectations, etc. And here I am going, yeah, I like Alex Laferriere. He's great, but whatever. And Laferriere is younger and just plays a totally different game. You mentioned speed. That was the one thing that really caught me by surprise during certain games this year is how fast Laferriere's top speed can get when he's really trucking.
Yeah, I think he doesn't have the foot speed that a lot of players, so it doesn't catch. But then, like you mentioned, by the time he does get to top speed, he is right where you need him to be, if not better than that. So yeah, and again, it's how he uses it. Keep in mind, it's only his second season he just finished, so I think that's important too, to hopefully mature, and then you just start recognizing. Although I think his IQ is exceptional, you start recognizing opportunities more and when to hit the hole and when not to hit the hole and all those types of things. So, again, we've been talking here. I do expect his numbers to go up. I do. Again, so you get better from within, hopefully.
There was a play, I don't remember when it was, but he started in the defensive zone, and I can't remember if he was carrying the puck or caught up to a defender in the neutral zone and took the puck from him. But he started in the neutral zone. The other player he started in his defensive zone. The other player started in the neutral zone. And it was essentially a one-on-one race. And by the time the two of them had reached the Kings' attacking zone, Laferriere had opened up probably a 10-foot gap on him, despite starting with a 30 to 40-foot gap. And it was,
I think that's
really impressive.
Partly hockey IQ. It's getting to the right spot at the right time. I think he has that.
So let's move to the center position for this line. We're talking about Quinton Byfield. And Quinton Byfield is one of those players where I think I shouldn't say everybody. I think a lot of people wanted immediate production, and they wanted a complete player out of him when he was 18 years old. And that's not who he is, and it's not what the organization told everybody he would be. There were plenty of conversations from upper management coaching on down that said, as he gets older, he will get better. He is not a complete player. We understood that when we drafted him. And we've seen him sort of peak and plateau and then find a new peak to reach and then plateau. And, this past season, for example, you and I talked about it and you said he's been working on his shot. You think he'll start scoring from distance. And sure enough, we saw he added that to his game this year. In years past, there was the defensive aspect, board battles, puck battles. He just keeps adding to his game. What's the next hurdle for Quinton Byfield?
Without being too simple, and I think it's the best. It's the place I start. I'm looking at 30-70.
Okay.
30 goals, 70 points.
So consistency?
No, I think he's fine. I think I think he was used differently this year. He was used in different ways, numerous ways, variety. And I think he did what he needed to do. This is also, in my mind, the year that when drafted, they said 5 years in, this is when he's going to blossom. So let's go. I also base it on not only my own, it's talking to people around the league and people who come up to me and go, man, this, he's playing great. It's like, okay, we see that, but I'm not sure if he's respected as much here as he is around the league. But until those 30-70 get there, then he's not going to, rightly so. I think there's going to be a lot of people that say he hasn't reached what he needs to reach. I think he's capable. The skill is there. The understanding is there. Now the role is there. We'll see if he can meet that role and, keep going with what he's doing with Fiala and keep that combination going. And, but no, he's reached the 5th year and, and I can go back and make excuses, and I will, and you decide whether the reasons or excuses, but he broke his ankle early.
That's not an excuse. That's just unfortunate.
He had illness, lost 20 pounds. He had some issues going on again with losing weight, which I think they found out was wisdom teeth that he had to have to keep going. And then he had tonsils. Tonsils extracted, which for an adult is pretty serious. But I think that was part of his weight gain fluctuation or up and down. So those are the reasons, excuses, whichever you want. So now you come back, you have a normal year, you have a healthy year, and I'd like to see 30-70.
I think the thing that keeps people wanting more, but also satisfied that he's capable of giving more, is that every now and then he'll do something that, frankly, I've never seen anybody do before. Last year it was the goal against Columbus. This year it was, I don't remember who it was against, but the goal that he scored where he, deflected the puck with one hand and then scored it with one hand. And you just go like, you know what? I've never seen that goal before. I've been watching the game a long time, and I've just never seen that before. I didn't know that was even possible.
And that's great. It's great. But Jim Hiller I think he put it perfect. He needs to have 5 of those and 25 other ones.
Right, yes.
Because those 5, you're right, that very few players can even attempt to try what he did. He was successful. And he can score the highlight reel goal. We know that. But when, you play within a system and structure of the Kings, you have to learn how to do other things. And, the previous year, he was scoring a lot of goals from front of the net, power play goals, retrieval goals, tips, rebounds. That's great. So hopefully that all is just being put together and making him a more difficult player to defend, because he can dance you, he can go around you, he can outmaneuver you, he can outposition you, he can overpower you. All those things hopefully comes together in one package.
I would not describe him as an overly physical player, but I have definitely seen him he definitely uses his size during the game, in between the whistles. After the whistles, every now and then he'll do, and it's never over the line. It's always just the right amount of, he'll bump into somebody, or he'll just be gliding and he won't stop. And he's not afraid of it, I guess is how I would put it.
My biggest concern going into the playoffs was Edmonton was going to run him.
Mm-hmm.
See what his reaction was. The a la Adrian Kempe of 4 years ago, when Adrian really caught my attention of, okay, he's standing up. So now I think he handled it fine. I think that Quinton handled it fine. But now we need to, again, just another progression is this. When does he become the guy that starts taking the runs?
Mm-hmm.
And not being penalized for it. So playing on that edge, playing on that physicality. And again, now we're talking about 5 different things here. I just mentioned skill, power, all that. He's capable. Very few are. But his skill and his size make him capable of that. Now it's about him doing it on the ice.
We talked a lot about the possibility of him moving up in minutes played. He did. The one drawback in his game, and it's a funny one because depending on who you talk to, it doesn't matter, or it matters the most, or it can matter a lot, is faceoffs. And when you have a team like the Kings with Kopitar and Jeannot, who both excel at faceoffs, and then you have a center like Byfield, who still has a lot of room to go, let's say, in developing his faceoff ability, it means that he's sort of relegated to a different role on special teams than he is at even strength, because you need to, you want to win those faceoffs on special teams, especially if you're in the defending or attacking zone, depending on the situation. And I would expect most coaches to go with who they trust the most. And until his numbers improve in that regard, I think I anticipate it would cost him playing time in certain situations.
Yeah, I think it would. But I think he has taken, again, another step. He's gotten better. He's worked on it. He was not taken off the ice in situations where maybe he was in the past. Still room for no question there's room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think if you even go back to last season and you went early on and then later on, I think the later on would be better. I don't have those numbers. I'm just going by feel and eye test. And again, he was put in situations. I'm not talking icing situations where he can't be replaced because you can't change. But other times he was left out there and he did a pretty good job. He won some important faceoffs, and that's. But I agree with you. I agree. That's an area that, when you have, if he's going to get to what we talked about, and he took the progression last year, to being the clear-cut number one guy, that'll have to be part of the picture.
The one thing I can confidently say about Quinton Byfield is that, because I spoke to a lot of people who watched him play in the OHL. I watched him play a lot when he was in Ontario for the brief period that he was. And I consistently saw and heard about a guy who would work on and improve the areas of his game that he was focused on. Like, he has consistently done that. He has overcome every challenge that he has tackled. So I have no fear at all that he will overcome that. Let's talk about Kevin Fiala. And, it's interesting. I was involved in a conversation on a Kings fan board, and there were some people who were highly critical of the organization, and there were some people who were highly defensive of the organization. And I try to stay out of those arguments because, my take on it is if you're fighting on the internet, nobody wins. There's no such thing as a winner in an online fight. But the person defending the organization, was trying to sort of have a gotcha moment and said, honestly, raise your hand if you thought Kevin Fiala struggled in the first half of the season. And I did get involved because I said, well, I did. I thought he struggled tremendously in the first half of the season. And the second half of the season, he was obviously a completely different player. He was, we've talked about it plenty. He improved his game. And it's the second year in a row that he's gotten better as the season has gone on. And I know you've talked about it. And listen, the price they paid to get him and the ceiling of his potential, it would just be a tremendous help if he was that player for 82 games a season, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't think it's consistency at all. I think it's mindset.
Okay.
And that's going to change it. You have to, let me put it this way. The beginning of the last season, and I'm paraphrasing myself. I remember saying, it's time that Kevin Fiala gets it.
Mm-hmm.
It's time. He's 28 years old. It's time. Getting it meant playing, finding a way. And just from talking to him and his teammates, I never, ever got the feeling he was a selfish player. But there were things he was doing that was against what the team was trying to accomplish, or how they were trying to accomplish things. He couldn't fit into that mold. Do you want to take an artist and change him? No, you want to give him some creativity. You want to make sure he has that. But so he made that change. Now it's up. Now, Jesse, does he start next season that way like he ended this year? Because he didn't in past years. He started 24-25, the way he played in the past. I think there were some analytic numbers that would tell you that his shooting percentage was way down early on. So he's still getting chances, just wasn't finishing. Then at the end, the finishing was coming on to the point where he ended up with 35. So that's a solid season. More than that. It was time. He had to make that, and now he has to do it at the beginning of next year. He has to come back and prove to his coaching staff and to his teammates that this is the Kevin Fiala now. And it's not important. You know my feelings on Kevin. I've been critical of him, but I'll be honest, and I rarely do it. But when they had the exit meetings, I went out to Kevin after he left, and I said, Kevin, I just said you were good. You were effing good in the playoffs and down at. I was so, not to say I don't know if I ever spoke this way. I was so proud of him because he made a personal change. He made a change that had nothing to do with his skill and nothing to do with shooting more or not shooting. He decided that he was not going to be as risky. And then he ended up proving that he could still be productive and less risky at the same time. And I think he proved that to himself. And I'm really happy for Kevin. And I will be happier if he starts next season the way he finished this one.
I'm just picking an arbitrary date on the calendar because it's 41 games in. In the first 41 games of the season, Fiala played 40 games. He had 14 goals, 8 assists, 22 points, and was a -10. In the second 41 games of the season, he had 21 goals, 17 assists, 38 points, led the team in scoring, and was a +3. And I think he and Byfield were equally responsible for the strong play in the others, right? In each other, the chemistry there was growing, and I mean, he was a huge part of why the conversation was had at some point near the end of the season of, do the Kings even really have a top line? Like, who is the top line? You know, we're sort of used to saying it's Kopitar and Kempe, but if Fiala is going to be a 30 to 40 goal scorer and Byfield is going to continue to, you know, emerge, and that's the kind of consistent play we're going to get out of that line, that could be the top line next year. If maybe not to start the season, but by the end of the season, which is what we said this year too, but we'll see.
Oh, it can be. It can be. It can be. And it's, you know, the Kempe is still in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
So we expect the same with him. But, and again, I know you talked about Fiala and Byfield as a pair, and then you have to take into account what Laferriere does for that group. So it's a great combination. It really is. Again, why would you break it up? Well, if Kuzmenko is not back, then, you know, someone has to fill up top. Is an acquisition, which we hope, right? We hope there's going to be some. You know, Marner's out there and all that stuff. Great. Only makes a pretty good team better. But that's where we are. And I think the one thing that makes this team better is Kevin Fiala and the way he played at the end.
His ability to score the same goal over and over and over again, particularly on the power play, got really funny to me at some point in the season. It's the move where he comes from just outside the top of the left face-off circle, moves to the middle, toe drags, pulls the puck into his body, and just fires it, you know, wrist shot from whatever, 30, 40 feet out. And
Jesse, I'm going to interrupt here because do you know how many times I saw him try that and work on that in practice?
I have no idea.
Thousands.
Well, it worked. It paid off.
That's preparation ends up paying off. Mm-hmm. He would talk to coaches. He would talk to defensemen. He would talk to goaltenders about, you know, he would have drills where you'd have, you know, they have those dummies out there. So now he would have those. Then he would go and talk to the goalie. What are you seeing on the other side? Can you see my release point? Can you see my hiding? Then he would talk to a defenseman. Well, how can I get it away from your stick? So a lot of that is just work. And you're right. You're right. I mean, again, you're the opposition now. You're going, well, Kevin Fiala is going to do this. He's going to start near the boards on the left side. As you said, he's going to get to the top of the circle. He's going to go into the middle. He's going to pull and drive. Stop it.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard.
I wouldn't say it's Ovechkin-esque, but it just got to the point where every time he did it, you're just like, well, how, you know, he's going to do it. Like, he does it all the time. And, you know, it's just, I got to the point where I was just laughing every time he scored it. Cause you're like, oh, well, there he goes again. Okay.
And I was like, you know, I'm just like watching a reel from practice. Cause he stays out long. He's for the high production, high skilled guy he is. He works on his game. I know he has a skills coach and he works with them periodically during the season, in person. But that's a commitment that Kevin makes to his game.
Can you talk a little bit about the value that somebody like that can bring to a game where if you're the opposition, even if you're outplaying your opponent, and then all of a sudden you have a guy who can come out there and do that, you know, a goal that essentially comes out of nowhere, right? He doesn't need line mates to set that one up necessarily. Mm-hmm. I just feel like that would have to be so aggravating and frustrating to have a guy who can just actually create something for himself out of nowhere.
Really, huh?
And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No. I'm just thinking of, does 97 fit that bill?
Oh, yes, I would imagine.
Okay, so that's
and 29 too, for that matter.
So now he has a partner in Draisaitl, and I think Edmonton's proving. But you're right. Kevin Fiala has a game-breaking capability that I think every top team needs. And, you know, I'm going to be honest. I'm not putting the Kings into that echelon. They're not a top team yet. They were right there, and I felt they should have won that first round series. And I think they had some self-inflicted wounds. And, but they're at a pretty good starting point, and that's why Kevin can't drop off. He can't, not the production. He can't go back to the old ways. He has to play with the new stuff.
Well, there was yet another conversation in these Kings online spaces, and there was just some talk about, where the defensive deficiencies lie and how they could be improved. And I just found myself shaking my head and going, listen, I get it. There's no such thing as a perfect team or a perfect player. But when you put up numbers like the Kings did on the defensive side of the puck, I just feel like what is the benefit of focusing a ton of attention on improving that? Like, the defense, Jim Hiller, for whatever his flaws may or may not be, because as we say, there's no such thing as a perfect team or a perfect coach or a perfect player or whatever. Todd McClellan used to talk about that all the time. He gets results on the defensive side of the puck. I mean, there's just no question about it. And especially when you add a goaltender like Darcy Kemper. And I mean, the team I can't remember what the numbers were, but for the last 3 seasons, the Kings defensively have been excellent.
Yes. Not enough.
Sure.
Not enough. I thought their counter-attack game improved dramatically in the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
The Kings did. I thought we made strides there. And I think maybe the next stride is to be confident enough to keep using it.
Well, they got 82 games before the next 82 regular season games. I guess we don't know how many preseason games yet, but they've got another year to go before they get tested again. Oh, well, I don't. I haven't got. Usually, I used to get the calendar update on my emails. This year, I don't know how, but I haven't gotten it yet. Got a couple days for the summer, but not the full thing. Anyway, Jim, thank you very much. We'll talk to you again as the summer rolls on.
All right, Jesse. Thanks very much again. Thank you.